I'm all good.
Okay, and we are live with Radlands, Btothej's Radlands 3. This is going to be the finals, and our competitors are getting set up right now with their shuffling and then camp selection. We're going to flip here to see who gets to go first.
I was out of
I
screen.
got a dash.
All right. It's a water.
So it looks
All
like
right.
Thallis is going to choose initiative for game one, and he's opting to go first. Now that's notable because on turn one, you are going to be in the position where you only start with one water. So the first turn advantage in Radlands is very heavily dictated by how good your starting hand is, what the composition of your starting hand is. And that might have something to do with your camps. Neither of these decision points are made at the point where you're determining initiative. So it it can be very beneficial to go first. Hypothetically, you get like obelisk and then your opening hand has two holdouts in it and all of a sudden you just explode to the board. But it can also, if you don't have the hand that supports that, you can kind of find yourself on the back foot as your opponent gets their first turn with a full three water. So the initial camp choice, what are you looking for in camps? Synergy is the biggest thing. Now, the first thing I look at on every camp is the number that's printed in the little black card on the left-hand side, and that is the number of cards that camp allows you to draw in your opening hand. I like to have a couple of camps with a 2 there. Even if the camps themselves functionally don't have a lot of synergy, being able to start with 4 cards and then even if your third camp has a 0, being able to start with 4 cards in hand feels pretty strong. The shoot the moon is to get 3 camps that all have 2 cards each, so you start with 7 cards essentially in your opening hand. That can be really good, but if you're only paying attention to that variable, you can put yourself in the position where you don't have camp synergy. And when your camps don't work well together, that card advantage can get dwindled away quickly because camp abilities, especially if they synergize, are really impactful in Radlands. All right, we're about to
For
reveal
sure. So
camps here.
I chose the labor camp. So destroy a person to restore for 0 water. The victory totem, 2 to injure or 2 to raid. And Nest of Spies, 1 water for if I put 2 people into play, damage.
all right. And I got the catapult for 2 water, damage any card and destroy one of your people. And
Okay.
arcade for 1 water, gain a punk if you have 0 or 1 people. And then the supply depot for 2 water. Draw 2 cards, then discard one of these cards. And it gives me 2, 1, starting hand of 3.
Okay, so let's dig into these camps real briefly as our players get set up to start. Going from B to the J's side, Labor Camp, Nest of Spies, Victory Totem. So the ability to put 2 or more people into play to be able to have that pay 1 water to deal a damage with the Nest of Spies, that relies pretty heavily on hand composition because the remainder of his camps don't feed into that strategy at all. The labor camp actually works antagonistically to that strategy where you're destroying people in order to restore things. Now, you could use that restore effect on a person, but probably you're going to use it on your camp. Finally, the victory totem allows him to pay 2 to injure or pay 2 to start a raid. It's always good to have or have the ability to start a raid from your camp and not have to rely on hand draw. That said, 2 water for a raid is not going to get you there by itself. So there's not a whole lot of synergy across B to the J's camps, but he did end up with 3 card draw. Moving over to Thallis' side, Arcade allows him to generate a punk for 1. Supply Depot allows him to draw 2 cards and then discard one, which could potentially filter and improve the hand composition. And the Catapult allows him to destroy his own cards to damage any card. So having the arcade and the catapult together definitely is a big threat, because even if there's protectors set up on the opposing side, you can catapult the people over those defenders and actually hit camps in the back row, much like the sniper.
Let's see. Let's
So it looks like
try.
Thallis had a relatively weak starting turn using the one water in order to generate a punk with the arcade. But if you're on the other side of the board, Btothej is going to have to take that seriously, because with only
We
2
put
additional water,
a.
that punk can turn into straight up damage against one of his camps,
This
even
works. We'll
something
put a
protected.
muse into play in front of the victory totem.
So the strategy
And
you have to have
then
if you're facing this catapult arcade combo is you have to present attractive threats. You have to play people that your opponent's going to want to use the catapult against, and kind of take the advantage of being able to hit any card away from them by giving them, well, if I hit the camp, then I'm going to leave this really strong person alive. The muse certainly could get you there, but
the
there are
mimic
stronger
into
direct
play
threats.
in front of the nest of spies.
Now,
I'll
this is a really
activate the
strong
nest of
combo.
spies to take out the punk.
All right.
Okay, so that's a really powerful opening. Uh, so able to neutralize the punk catapult threat for one water by virtue of getting 2 characters into play and taking advantage of the nest of spies. That's a really strong way to open. Plus, both of those cards can potentially be threats on their own. The Muse is able to generate 1 water, and the Mimic, if it doesn't have any other targets, is still going to give Btothej essentially a whole extra turn's worth of water. Well, 2/3 of a turn's worth of water on every turn. Now, if Thallis tries to develop people to deal with the threat of the Muse Mimic combo, okay, so he's going to hit the Muse with the Pyromaniac. Now, the Mimic is still online. If Thallis wants to develop his own side of the board, he has to be careful here not to play a good ability
Gain a punk.
that he can then feed that power to the Mimic and allow Btothej to actually take advantage of that power before Thallis himself even gets a chance to use it. I'm not surprised to see another punk come out.
Game.
So a thing that happens in Radlands a lot of the time is you present threats to each other. What you want to do on your turn is try to neutralize whatever threat your opponent has presented, and then also have enough additional resources to present a threat of your own. So Thallis is really going to need to continually generate those punks to keep that catapult threat alive, and that prevents Btothej from really taking his resources and trying to develop and build his engine. You always want your opponent to feel like they're in kind of survival mode. At the moment you have the ability to kind of take like a lateral move, like the luxury of spending 2 water to draw an extra card, when your opponent starts doing that kind of stuff, it means you're probably not putting them under enough pressure.
No events.
So the scout coming down for Thallis is going to
Draw
allow
1
him
card for the
to
turn.
get cheap raid generation, but I'm going to be surprised if that character survives. Scout is maybe not like a tier 1 must kill on site character, like something like the Mad Scientist would be, or certainly any of the legendaries. But cheap raids have a way of compounding, particularly if you hit another key card like a Mimic, or I think it's Carly Blaze that lets you use powers twice in a turn.
Put
1 water
out
raids
a
can really get out of
rabble
control.
rouser. Um,
So the Rabble Browser has the ability to generate a punk himself, which
the
is pretty
scout
good.
is 2. Is it 2 to activate?
Just 1.
Just 1?
Yeah.
That's correct. It's just 1 to activate the
Okay.
scout. Additionally, if you can get a punk down to support that rabble browser, then the rabble browser has a pay 1 to deal a damage power. Typically speaking, dealing damage costs 2 water, so anytime you're able to do it for 1, you're getting it at a discounted rate, and that's something you want to go after. That you want to try to set those turns up if you can. There isn't anything on the campside between Victory, Totem, Labor Camp, and Nest of Spies that's going to allow any kind of punk support there. So it looks like the function the Rabble Rouser is going to serve is a meat shield for that Mimic.
We'll put a sniper out,
Okay, so this is
and
potentially
then
very dangerous.
activate Nest of Spies to damage the scout,
All right.
and then pass the turn with one card.
Great.
So the catapult play is alive here. The issue is it
I
costs
will
2.
draw a card first of all.
Now Thallis is holding the water silo in hand,
Play
so
napalm for
oh,
2 in the 1 slot.
And sorry, remind me what that does when it goes off.
Destroy all enemies in 1 column.
Yep, okay.
so just a reminder, enemies
Two.
means people, not
Yeah.
camps. So napalm is not
Mm.
so good as to be capable of destroying the camp in that column, but it will be a complete wipeout
Now,
of either the mimic or the sniper column next turn, unless Btothej has the ability to play Doomsayer on his subsequent turn, like right now.
mm,
So the board Thallis is looking at here is a really good example of presenting your opponent with multiple threats. Like he needs to address the sniper. That's a huge problem. But the mimic has the potential to be a huge problem
yeah.
too.
Um,
So what do you go
junk
after?
the water silo to gain a water, and then I will use my catapult for 2. Damage any card, and I'm damaging your
It's got to be the sniper.
sniper.
Yeah. So
Sniper?
that's a tough call
Yeah.
because the mimic is such a high
Okay.
value target, but the sniper,
Destroy the scout.
without support cards, the sniper is
Okay.
much
And
worse. Or the mimic is much worse, rather. So you kind of always have to address the higher tier threat, while the mimic has the ability to kind of sit down there and below the radar generate value throughout the course of the game.
then I'll junk the rescue team to hit your rebel rouser. And pass turn.
And if we
Two
don't
cards.
see a heal on the sniper here, I think the napalm is going to go off on the mimic column. If we do see a heal
For
on
the
the sniper
turn.
here, then I think he's going to target the sniper row. Sniper column, rather. The fact that we've seen 2 Nest of Spies activations this early in the game is pretty incredible. There's been a lot of resources deployed to the board, and you heard when he passed his last turn, Btothej said that he only had 1 card in hand. Well, that's because all his cards are in play. So this napalm could be extremely impactful. If Thallis is able to clear one of these columns and leave Btothej with no people that are able to actually do any kind of powers, or both Sniper and the Muse are injured at this point. So if that takes all the players off the board, Thallis has also presented a board that gives the Mimic absolutely no value. So he's not putting himself in the position where he's attempting to develop and feeding value to his opponent. Just in kind of a vacuum, imagine a people card that has deal a damage. You play that out, you can't use the ability because you have summoning
Go
sickness.
with
Your opponent has the mimic and they get to take advantage of the ability before
activate.
you do. That's terrible. So pay 2 to get those raiders out there for Btothej. I think he's probably of the mind that he needs to conserve resources here and wait until after the napalm strike goes off. Like don't give Thal's any more value than you have to off that card. Now there could be an argument here of playing an extremely high value card to the empty column and forcing him to kill the single card rather than kill 2 cards. But it looks like Btothej is opting to hunker down, take a sort of a turn off from presenting threats, build up resources, and then allow the napalm to go off. After that, the threat of that event has passed, then he can start to redeploy resources to the board. Now, this is a place where we could see kind of a flip in board presence. Throughout the opening turns of this game, Thallis has been on the back foot. While choosing to go first, he has not been able to get control of the board, develop any kind of like really strong presence. But the catapults kept him safe from the kind of imminent threat of the sniper.
John, a gunner
But
to stand
now,
up my
ooh,
sniper.
Alright.
okay.
I'll pass.
The
Two
napalm
cards.
has to go to the sniper column now.
Well,
Alright.
a card in the water silo.
Yeah. Napalm goes off. And let me see.
It is a tough choice, though. You really don't want to leave the
Make
mimic
the choice
alive.
a little more difficult.
Yeah.
I think I'll do the
Now, this is an
white
example of one of those
column.
concepts they talk about in poker where you
Okay.
try to
Yeah,
present
so
your
me with
opponent with more
sniper.
difficult
Alright.
choices than you yourself are making. While
Um,
there is maybe some
next.
question as to whether the heal value on the sniper there was worth it, it forced his opponent to have to sit there and go, okay, wait, I need to focus. Which column do I want to kill? Because probably up until that moment, Thallis was coasting on the plan of taking out the mimic row and then doing cleanup on the two injured enemies. Every time you use your decision making every time you're forced to use your decision making power, you have the potential to make a mistake. Now, I don't think that was the mistake. I think that was the correct call on Thal's part there. But you want to give your opponent as many chances as possible to make those mistakes.
Mutant and a Doomsayer. That
Yeah.
will push back your
Okay,
event.
I remember mutant. Sorry, what's Doomsayer again?
If opponent has an event in play, deal the damage for 1 water, and his trait is when this card enters play, you may move all the opponent's events back 1 slot.
That Doomsayer is actually a big deal because Btothej doesn't have something like a scout in play where he could push his raid forward cheaply. The Doomsayer catching the raid on slot 2 has now pushed it back to it's going to take 3 turns before it goes off, which means Thallis is going to get at least 2 turns of being able to pay 1 water to deal 1 damage using the Doomsayer's power. As soon as that raid goes off, Doomsayer's a blank card again. And while Btothej has a camp that would allow him to push his raid forward 1 here, that's going to take 2 water. That's almost his whole turn. Now he is holding the water silo, so it wouldn't necessarily have to be 2/3 of the turn. It could only be half the water income for it. But that's a tough spot to be in. You really don't want to let your opponent get Doomsayer value for more turns than you have to. So there's got to be a lot of internal pressure to try to get that raid moving. Is this a turn? If you're holding a mad scientist, a card everybody always wants to play due to how strong it is this the kind of turn where you junk the mad scientist, push the raid up 1, pay 2 water, have it go off, and then leave your opponent with a blank Doomsayer? It might be, but that's not a choice you take lightly necessarily. So the interrogate play
So it
to
says
me
draw 4,
says,
then discard 3 of these cards. So does that mean I can't discard a card from my, like, does it have to be
yes, it has
Yeah,
to be
one
one of
of
those
those
four?
4.
cards.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll set my hand to the side then so I don't mix it up or forget
So before that rules question, the thought I was getting
my
to
hand.
is the
Card
interrogate play
over
there
here.
says to me that B to the
4.
J has a weak hand. Maybe not weak in a vacuum, but weak for the given board state. Like he's not holding a card that he can junk to push the raid forward. He's doesn't have anything to necessarily answer the board presence his opponent has in play. So overall, when Interrogate's a very strong card. It essentially you're paying 1 water to draw a
Okay.
card, which is half built-in game mechanic rate. Normally you pay 2 for a
That's
card.
one to
Plus you get to
keep. So
choose from
discard
4
Dealer,
presented cards.
Exterminator, Truce.
So it's not just you get a cheap card, it's card selection on top of that.
2, 1 to put Famine in the top spot.
All right, and remind me the ability or the effect.
So
Yeah, so when
famine,
that
I think,
goes
kills
off,
everybody
each
but
player
one.
starting with me destroys all but one of their people.
Yes.
All right.
So that was a pretty clutch card to get down. Right as it looks like Thallis is going to take control of the board, turn things around. Now, much like the Napalm turn Thallis had a couple turns ago, Btothej is going to pass him a board and present him a board state where if he develops anything, it's going to get killed by the
And
famine.
then
So unless Thallis has resources in hand already that he knows he can use to rebuild, he's going to be in the position of having to potentially like take a turn off, knowing that the famine's going to go off and he can't develop people. That said, paying one
couple
to
ideas, but not
the
sure what to
Doomsayer,
try.
which he'll be able to do because there's events on the event track, and then two to a catapult to kill one of these punks that he knows is going to die anyway. That's still putting quite a bit of damage on out from his board, so it's still just a very tight game.
Let's try. Hmm.
Now, if Dallas had an event in play, we could see the Mimic copying the Doomsayer, and as such being able to maybe chip away at one of those punks, maybe even put a damage on the exposed supply depot that Thallis is presenting there. I'm curious how many cards are in hand. I know a few turns ago,
Activate
Btothej.
the mimic, copying the mutant
Ooh,
Mm-hmm.
copying the
to
mutant.
damage your unprotected camp, the supply depot, I think,
And he's going to be
and
able to heal his
restore
rabble rouser as
rabble
well.
rousers, which then damages the mimic.
So I think the play when the famine goes off is going to be to try to hope the rabble
I
rouser
will
sticks around.
water silo for an extra water, or spend the 2 water to draw a card.
Okay, is that the only card he has left in hand, I wonder?
With that, I'll pass the turn with
Okay.
2 cards in hand.
2 cards in hand. Okay.
3 water, a card.
So I have to anticipate
I will.
that we're going to see either a mutant or a Doomsayer activation
For
here, or
0
both.
water, I will
Yeah.
damage um your labor camp,
Okay.
And
and I
then
will
surely he'll
restore
heal
my
the supply
supply
depot.
depot
Yeah.
and damage the mutant. And because you have an event in play, I can for 1 I will hit the labor camp.
Yeah.
Oh, kill shot on the labor camp. Okay. So even while both players are fighting for board state here, and there's been a lot of parity, Thallis was able to find a turn where he was able to, for relatively cheap, I mean, a mutant activation is free, well, free as far as water cost. It does, of course, put damage on his turn, but he was able to get the full value mutant activation by healing the supply depot that Btothej had targeted using the Mimic, and then finish off that labor camp with the Doomsayer. Now, I wonder. Okay, so we got the
Okay.
catapult going off here with a punk that we know is going to die due to famine anyway, and putting damage on the victory totem. Now, the Nest of Spies was off the table due to the amount of protection in front of it, but I do kind of wonder between Labor Camp and Victory Totem, the threat of the raid has to be there. I guess if
Yeah.
you've got a Doomsayer up and you think your Doomsayer is going to stick, you target the labor
Two
camp
cards.
instead of the victory totem because you kind of want your opponent to throw those raids up for you.
Starting with me, so I'll keep the Rabble Rouser, destroy the Mimic, and then you decide something. Yeah,
We have to expect a
I'll keep it.
Doomsayer keep here from
Doomsayer.
yeah.
Makes sense. So Famine is resolved. Raiders to the one spot. Draw my card for the turn.
So now we have board state parity, and we have Thallis with full health, all three camps undamaged, and Btothej going from tied the last time he said pass turn to now being at half health. One camp lost entirely, victory totem teetering.
Oh, what order here?
Almost have to expect a Rabble Rouser activation here just to get a punk down to try to protect the Rabble Rouser. Now it'll be a little difficult to protect it. Let's see, how much... If he pays 2 to push the raid through, then the Doomsayer is going to be blank. That feels good. It would cost 1 water for Thallis to use the arcade, and then 2 more to destroy that punk as a catapult, which if he doesn't restore the victory totem, could spell an end to the victory totem, or potentially it could injure the Rabble Rouser just jumping over the punk just to make sure that there's no offense coming back. So if you're on Btothej's side of the board here, you got to be thinking about kind of all of these threads. It seems unlikely, given he's got 3 cards in hand, two holding over plus the 1 drawn this turn. It seems unlikely that he's going to be able to get enough stuff down to do Nest of Spies. If he has exactly 2 1-cost characters,
Another Rabble Rouser into play, I guess.
interesting.
Here.
So Rabble.
Punk into play. Here.
1 water left. Now this would be able to activate Nest of Spies here. Do you use it to try to chip a camp? Or I think you have to damage the Doomsayer.
Activate Nest of Spies. Hitting your person with Doomsayer.
Yeah.
Dooms.
Junk a wounded soldier to take out the Doomsayer.
Oh, wow. What a turn of events. So this is the kind of thing I love about Radlands.
Pass with 1 card in hand.
All right.
Look at how beautiful Btothej's turn was there. He had 3 cards to work with and was able to play 2 things out to the board, injure, and then kill off the only thing Thallis had left. So this protects, I mean, it sort of protects his victory totem, protects it from normal damage. So while he did go from full health to half health in a very rapid fashion, that punk does kind of imply Thallis might just say, I'm not going to deal with any of your board threats, and I'm just going to kill off your victory totem while I have the chance. That is one of the risks with Radlands. Once somebody hits a restore effect, it can become difficult, sometimes impossible to get that camp down again. But sometimes when you push to finish a camp off and you don't address the board, that gives your opponent the opening they need to really start taking over and just putting the pressure on you and putting you on the back foot. We've seen a number of big swings throughout the course of this game already, and that's the beauty of Radlands. I was thinking it over. It looks like he's got 3 cards in hand there, and 2 water left after using the arcade to generate a punk. Not holding the silo, so unless there's a card in hand he can junk for water, he's only got the 2 to spend. You've got to be careful here too, because when that ray comes in, if he leaves his board unprotected with...
Use the Interrogate to draw 4 cards and keep 1.
There you go. Well, I said it before when Btothej did it, and I'm going to say it now when Thallis does it. So your opponent being in this kind of high pressure situation and having to take 1 water to interrogate, to dig for answers, That implies to me
Just gonna look at my other hand real quick.
a weakness in the hand, a lack of ways to address it. So if Thallis were to catapult here, which he no longer has the water to pay for, so it's going to require junking a card. But if he were to catapult here and kill off the victory totem, then whatever camp he chooses to damage when the raid goes off next turn is going to automatically get destroyed by the rabble rouser, and that leaves another rabble rouser, which will be able to pay one and deal the damage
Well, I'm
with
gonna put
due to
this
the
on
existence
this
of that
card,
punk
Grave,
on board.
Napalm, and Exterminator. And I will junk Uprising to hit your Rebel Rouser.
I think that's pretty crucial.
And
Taking away the ability to just pay one, deal damage is pretty important at this juncture. I'm trying to double check the rabble rouser's ability activation cost here. Make sure I'm not misspeaking.
then I'm gonna pull out a sniper.
Yeah, so it's pay one to play a punk and pay one to deal damage if you have a
Next turn.
punk. All right, so that's a
So Raiders
beautiful
being
example
involved.
of what I was talking about earlier in the game of presenting threats. Now, while I'm sure Btothej wanted to take this turn to go in hard and kill off one of Thallis's camps,
Go to this.
now he has to look at
Yeah, 1 second.
real long and hard at that sniper.
Mm,
I think that's the right call. If I'm in Thallis' shoes, I turn the supply depot as a way to tempt the rabble rouser activation to finish the supply depot off, which isn't good. That's not something you want, but it keeps your sniper alive, unless Btothej has some kind of follow-up damage. Now, if he allows the raid to injure one of the two protecting camps, it makes the rabble rouser into sniper a much
Can't
easier
decide.
choice.
I'd do the arcade.
Okay.
Almost have to
Yeah,
see the
not an
rabble
easy
rouser hit the
choice.
sniper now.
Drawn by one card. Hmm. The full arcade combo is just something.
Yeah.
Changing all of my decisions, it feels like.
He is not wrong.
Or just makes it, yeah, it's quite the threat. Let's see.
Yeah.
Catapult arcade combo is a tremendous threat. So some damage has to hit that sniper. I feel like so if I'm in Btothej's shoes right now, I'm looking at the threats being presented. The punk plus the catapult
Yeah, 3
absolutely is
water for
something he has
damage,
to
but
take
it puts
serious.
pressure on you a lot.
But you also have to take
Yeah,
serious the sniper. You can't allow your opponent to have a
that the
two
catapult can
water
hit any
way to
card,
damage
right?
any card, especially when they already have a three water way to damage any card. So you have to imagine he's looking at, okay, how can I get some damage on that camp? And picking the arcade out probably neutralizes the catapult too at this point in the game. It's unlikely that Thallis is going to ever have enough breathing room to dump water into drawing extra cards, to build up a bunch of hand advantage, to be able to have the surplus of people necessary to make the catapult be a giant threat. So while the arcade is wounded right now, you have to feel like Btothej is like, this is my chance. How do I get to it? So the mutant, if the cards came into play ready, the mutant would be beautiful right here. Unfortunately, they do not. I mean, if you're in Btothej's shoes, I think you want two damage. Okay, Rabble Rouser does indeed go into the sniper. And I feel like if I was on his side of the board, I would want one more damage that I could put on that punk to force Thallis to, if he wants to catapult, use the sniper. or if he wants to try to preserve his. Oh, now, oh, that's about the weakest hand you can have is just a water silo. Your opponent knows exactly what it is. There's there's no unknown resources that could be coming down. They know you're in top deck mode. Now, if I'm Thallis, are you kicking yourself that you didn't finish the victory totem off? I don't know. I mean, you got to address the board still. I mean, if you had he put resources into finishing off the victory totem, the sniper would have been dead, or the punk would have been gone. So I think probably the line of play of letting the run the risk, essentially daring Btothej to have the restore, running the risk that the victory totem was going to get stood back up. I think that's probably the correct play. Okay, so Supply Depot isn't quite as expensive as General Game Mechanics draw. While it costs the same, it's 2 water. You actually get to draw 2 cards, and then you choose the one you want. So it is, well, 2 cards isn't the most cards possible. It's not like an interrogate. It does, 2 cards is a heck of a lot better than one, so to speak. I was commenting on last turn that I didn't know that Thalss would be in the position to really develop hand advantage given the amount of pressure. But here we are, 3 cards to merely a water silo. Oh, wow, that heal bot was clutch.
Junk. Bombardment to stand up the arcade.
Okay. Well, the board state looks a little more stable for Thalss here, but his hand has crumbled under the demand of standing all these cards up. So if Btothej draws a dead card, something that's not useful at all, he's going to be able to deal a damage with the mutant, and he's going to be able to deal a damage with that standing rabble rouser if Thallis can't at least injure that punk. That would be what I would be looking for here.
I will junk Cedo Khan to gain a punk. And pass turn with 0 water and 0 cards.
All right. Got my water below and 3 water.
So if I'm Btothej, what is the card that I want to see here? Strafe would feel pretty good. Strafe would feel really good, actually. You could clear 1 punk, injure the heal bot, use the mutant to get through the heal bot, and then have the rabble rouser left over for the sniper.
Activate the mutant to damage the repair bot and restore my rabble rouser.
That's just so strong.
Naughty for the turn.
Even the fact that the mutant damages itself. If you're putting 1 damage out and standing up something you have, that card is worth
Activate
every drop.
rabble rouser to damage the repair bot.
Yeah.
Take them out.
So with 2 water left, the play that doesn't put any pressure on the hand would be to pay 2 to the water victory totem. Oh, it looks like that's where we're going.
To injure the sniper.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
And
Unfortunately,
1 card in a water silo. Let's see.
unfortunately, Thallis still has a 2 water way to deal damage to any card in play in the form of his
Yeah, that'll be it.
catapult, and the punk's
Okay.
already in play. So what would I want to see here if I'm on Thallis' side of the board? So he's got to. Oh man, there's too many targets. Strafe would kind of get him there.
I will
He,
jump the wounded soldier to
kill the
hit
punk?
your rebel rouser.
Oh, okay.
And then I will, with the catapult, hit your. See, I'll go for the second rebel rouser.
Okay. So
And
this
then
is
I'll put in the water
precarious.
silo for my last water.
Okay.
And pass turn.
Again, this pays off a bit here in taking out the labor camp first. This would be a situation where I would be licking my chops to have the labor camp destroy a punk, heal one of my rabble rousers, or heal that mutant, and then be able to get an additional healing out. That would have been great. So while I questioned it in the moment, I think long term has borne out that Thal's made the right choice in targeting the labor camp first. So much dead weight. Just a whole board full of injured people. Well, like the song says,
A
war, what is it good for? Absolutely nothing.
vigilante out.
Now, I'd like to see a way to protect that vigilante, because that injure ability could be very relevant. That's a cheap and easy way to keep the punks down, and so far Thalos has been able to kind of like generate punks at will and not really have to worry about them getting picked off and just sitting around and
Injure
waiting until the
the.
right opportunity
Let's take
to
out the sniper.
activate the catapult presents itself. Paying 2 to the victory totem to clear the sniper. Yeah, paying 2 for 1
And
damage
then
is
what's
expensive,
this
but
presence? I think it's worth it.
undoubtedly the right
Junk
call in this situation.
thing to get a punk. Cash in the water silo to use Nest of Spies to
I'm gonna clear the punk here.
punk or a camp.
Oh wow,
Um,
okay. Well, if he's committed to a camp, I would say arcade over supply depot, but let's see what he chooses.
let's hit the arcade.
Now this is
Pass
risky.
the turn. 0 cards.
Okay.
It is asking the question of Thalos, can you heal that camp? And if you can,
I'll
probably wasted
use
opportunity.
the catapult to hit your vigilante.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'll cash in the water silo.
Btothej is actually a
Mm,
pretty
no, wait.
precarious position here because you cannot
I will
clear
have to cash
people
in
to
the water
make
silo.
room. Something has to happen. They have to get killed. They have to be eliminated by your opponent. I guess in kind of a bank shot way, a card like Famine, you could play a Famine, and that could have the net result of
Yes.
killing your
I'm
people
gonna cash
because
in
it
the
kills
water
people on
silo
both
and
sides.
Jungle Looter to gain 2 water and use it on my supply depot. Pick 2 cards.
So even if Btothej draws like I'm trying to think, a Carly Blaze or some kind of anything, even a rescue team. You think, oh, I want to be able to clear some slots. Well, you have to have a slot to play the rescue team. He's completely locked out of his own board. Now, if he can start healing some of these characters,
Hmm.
that could be game over for Thallis. If you can get that back row rabble rouser stood up, get that vigilante stood up, now you're looking at the ability to just straight up kill anything Thallis puts out. So he's going to be in the position of having to deploy multiple threats in order to ensure one survives. Brand needs string of punks from Thallis' side of the board. Very shrewd combination
That's
of
pretty clear.
camps with that arcade
Alright,
catapult combo.
and I'm gonna pass turn.
Okay.
And even the supply depot has come in useful. I think it's activated a couple times, and one of those was that
Draw
clutch
my
top
card
deck
for
a
the
couple turns
turn.
ago. So if I'm B to the J, I know Thallis has already played one of his Doomsayers, so I feel pretty confident putting some water into events. And that is the only place he's going to be able to put water. So if he top decked a person here that doesn't have the ability to junk to injure that punk and clear it out of the way, I suspect what we're going to see is 2 water invested in drawing a card and 1 into the silo as just a rebuilding turn. Now, if the card that he top decked this turn gives him the ability to restore something, he's got to restore either the Rabble Rouser or the Vigilante. Maybe even the Mutant is worth consideration, but the reason that they have to be restored is not because they're going to last long enough to actually be able to do anything, but because it's going to force Thallis to commit the
Force
catapult to
Victory Totem
taking out
to
that
get rid of
threat.
the punk.
So Victory Totem injures the punk,
And
so Thallis is back to
take
having
the
to pay the
water
full 3
side.
water to do the arcade catapult combo.
Pass the turn.
Alright.
Okay. So that's probably better than the line I suggested of trying to spend 2 to draw an extra card, making sure
Junk.
that punk is out of the way. It makes
Raiders
all
to
the sense in
activate.
the world.
Banish to activate the Raiders
Okay.
So jump banish to get the raids going.
on the 1, 2. Yeah,
2 spot. Okay.
that's here.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
A
Yep.
little bit over anxious with the
And
raid placement there. So do you just catapult here?
a
It
punk
doesn't
card
really feel like enough, does it?
and a Muse and a Silo.
So this is a pretty good setup turn. The Muse is
Pass turn.
going to
It's
generate
just
1
a
water
Silo.
for free for Thallis next turn, which is going to give him potentially the ability to deploy something bigger if he top decks into it. The Punk being in front of the Muse protects it. There's 2 exposed camps, but unless B to the J presents us with something different, he's not going to be able to hit the camps. So he's going to be looking at that pay 2 to the Victory Totem to clear the Punk out of the way. Potentially pay 2 to the Victory Totem to start a raid. But based on the current board state, even if B to the J is able to junk a card to restore one of these people, that isn't going to be good enough because they won't be ready until next turn. Very strange board state here.
Let's see.
Given that B to the J has the full 6 slots full and Thallis only has 2 slots,
Okay.
it kind of feels
Water silo.
like there's
Get an extra
parity.
water. Draw a card.
Okay. Water Silo plus 1 of his 3 to draw another card. I mean, he's certainly got the breathing room to do that. I don't think he has to worry about Thallis just dumping everything into catapulting the camps down.
Let's
But
see.
we haven't seen a
So
famine, we haven't
let's
seen a radiation from
do.
Thallis, so there could be one of those board wipey events coming up, and that's going to hurt B to the J way more than it's going to hurt Thallis, unless during this period where he's got a bunch of injured meat shields, essentially using the medical wing of his camps as speed bump to slow down the aggression on the other side of the board. BTJ could end up being able to totally redeploy if there is a board wipe type event going off. And given how the catapult works, maybe you feel okay if your Thallis going, okay, I'm going to just leave all this useless stuff on my opponent's board. If he stands one of these people up, I'll address that threat when it happens. Otherwise, I got my Muse, I'm gonna have this water, I'm gonna catapult this dude and start picking off the camps in the back row. That could be a path to victory.
I'm gonna play radiation too. Yeah.
Get rid of your injured people.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we see the
But
play
is it
here.
one
Um,
damage to all?
it's a damage
In
to all people.
B to the
Yes,
yeah.
J is feeling the pressure.
and it
He
starts in one
finally
spot.
said no more.
So
He
I've
finally
got
said, I gotta
two
get
cards
all
in
these injured people
hand.
out of here.
Time to pass. I will pass. Two cards
Okay.
in hand.
That
Raid
can't
is
feel
move up.
good. Normally, you think about a card like Radiation as
Oh,
eliminating
why did I
your
pick?
opponent's
I'm
board.
sorry.
That's
I
right.
barely saw them. I'm just gonna. I didn't see them.
If you saw them both, yeah, feel free to shuffle the
I don't know.
board.
I didn't.
A little bit of a misplay there, but handled with integrity by both players. Not a misplay, a sloppy play. Sometimes cards stick together. It happens to the best of us. Okay, so when I have a Muse in play, I always generate her free water immediately so I don't forget. It would be a colossal misplay to forget that, and I can't imagine we're going to see that at this level.
Um. Well, I'm definitely gonna activate the Muse.
Yeah, there it goes. First actual
Yeah,
play he
and
makes is to make sure the Muse activation goes through.
I will
So
use the supply depot
junking
to pick 2 cards.
junking a card to have a raid go off here would feel pretty good because whichever can't be to the J damage,
I'll
you could
get rid
then
of the
put two
sniper.
water into catapulting the punk into it and finishing it off. It might leave your board a little bit exposed, but like B to the J
I
is
will
gonna
play.
suicide his own board here in about 2 seconds. So I don't think you feel too bad about over committing to camp destruction on a board state like this. Although normally committing to a camp destruction line when you're outnumbered 6-2 in board state would be pretty pretty questionable. I think there's a strong argument for it here, assuming Thallis can push that raid through. If he can't finish the camp off, then maybe you catapult one of those punks out of the way or something.
Yeah, let's just get
Or
rid of the punk and hit your
no, because the punks
victory
will get killed
totem.
by the radiation. Oh, so he is going to go for the victory
Yeah,
totem. Okay, so he's saying I dare you to
and
have
I
the
will
heal. If he doesn't have the
end
heal, B to the
my
J is
turn.
at risk of
Got
losing the
water
camp that has
slide
kind of
on
kept
2
him in
cards.
this game. Now, Nest of Spies might be able to become active
Radiate.
again after this radiation goes off.
Goodbye, my board.
Wow,
Yeah,
that has to feel pretty bad.
Punks to
instantly.
the top.
All right.
So I guess
Well,
To have a
now
full
you have
six
room
turn
board
for
slots and then
options.
have to commit your resources to getting them out of the way. Oof. I mean, I think it's probably the correct thing to do, but man, that doesn't feel good. Added benefit, the radiation does afflict the Muse as well. So Thal's is going to be back down to 3 water next turn. Oh, and he had it. He had a way to stand that victory totem up. That's got to feel a little bit dispiriting. Although that raid's going to go off next turn and we're going to be almost right back where we are now. I suspect, given the choice, though, B to the J is probably going to damage the Nest of Spies rather than the victory totem. But I don't know what the composition of his hand is, and if he has the way to cheaply, like if he's got 2 Vanguards in hand where the guy comes into play and spits out a punk, that could potentially be 2 relatively easy to get to Nest of Spy activations. But given the overall texture of this game at this point, I think we have to assume that he's going to value the victory totem over the Nest of Spies, given the role it's played across recent turns. Higher ground. Okay.
It's off.
I'm not sure I understand that higher ground play. Uh, Now, if I'm Thallis right now and I top deck the second copy of Doomsayer, yeah, I expected the Nessus Spies injury there. But if a Doomsayer comes down right here, especially if it gets protected behind the Muse, that might be all she wrote. There is a real risk anytime you play your raid behind another event because that turns off like the victory totem's power that allows Btothej to push his raid up. Well, there's another raid in front. Yeah, I'm not surprised to see the Nest of Spies go there. Uh, so the Muse got catapulted. Funny mental image. Now, once the high ground goes off, that will turn the raid advancement stuff back on, of course. It just has to get out of the way first.
Browser for the raids. Get back out.
A lot of pressure here. So, with the raid bearing down on him, you've got to look at probably trying to clear that arcade.
Cash in the water silo. For an extra water and use it on the supply depot. Pick up 2.
Wow, that supply depot's been earning its cost tonight.
And I'm gonna discard the truce and pass the turn with 3 cards and a silo.
Okay, this may be the last time we see the board flip. Thallis is starting to get comfortably ahead.
That's all right. So higher ground goes off. No rearrange.
All my cards are unprotected.
What price?
Yeah, nothing to rearrange. Nothing's protected anyway.
Draw a card for the turn.
I don't think the question was whether or not
okay,
cards
so
were unprotected on Thal's side of the board. It was whether or not Btothej could present damage. And the answer, unfortunately for him, seems to be no.
Interrogate. Draw 4. Discard 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, what am I keeping?
I can't think of any card
Don't
that
really
could show up here that is gonna let Btothej.
yeah.
Like, conceivably, he could have something that would advance the raid, but if you're Thallis, you're not gonna kill your own arcade. You're gonna take that damage probably on the supply depot. Or if I was in his
I
shoes,
discarded my silo last turn.
a raid going off, I would take on the supply depot. That would leave me with 2 injured camps, but there's still a full arcade combo going. That plus the raid means Thallis wins if he gets 1 raid advance icon on any of the 3 cards in his hand.
Man, I do not love this. Getting Wounded Soldier into play. Draw.
Oh wow, just digging for answers still. Interesting they didn't put the Wounded Soldier in front of the heal bot to protect it and potentially
in the water silo.
If Thallis tries to do a 2-turn kill shot on the victory totem, giving him the a larger percent chance of having the opportunity to use the heal bot to stand the victory totem up. So if we see a junk from Thallis here to advance the raid, that's game over. Taking a little bit of a slower play here. Must not have had the raid advance icon on any of his cards. But this is closing the jaws of the trap here. Btothej is going to be in the position of having to chop through the punk, get to the Doomsayer, try to protect his camp from that catapult. This is a tight spot. I'm not sure what's going to get him out of it. Strife would do some amount of work towards getting him out of it. But it's things like that. Strife, Gunner with the full turn rotation to be able to use his power. Like he needs ways to be able to hurt more than one person per turn. Advancing the raid here would be really good because it would take the Doomsayer's ability to deal 1 cost damage out of play. It's going to be over to the catapult if potentially Btothej could play his own Doomsayer here and push back Thallis' raid. Oh, I think we're here at the end of game 1.
The next game.
Yeah.
Okay.
You want
Yeah. So
because
Raiders of
Raiders will go
Lands
off
and
one
Catapult.
option and
Yeah.
yeah.
All right.
Wow,
Used
what a
the
game
line I
1.
figured, so yeah.
Yeah.
I made the mistake of keeping my victory totem. I should have damaged the victory totem instead of the nest of spies.
Ah.
Either way, I was in a tough spot. Then you catapult, let's say the victory totem, but then I think I might have chance at taking out your arcade with the nest of
Yeah.
spies available instead
Yeah.
of the
Because
victory
that
totem.
could
So yeah,
make that damage. Yeah.
yeah. So that
Yeah. It was
definitely.
a
I
tough
mean,
combo. I got to use it a
yeah,
lot. Like I didn't have
yeah.
many people down, so I could use the arcade a lot. That was
Okay, so our players are going to start to get shuffled up, and we're going to move into game 2. To kind of reflect back over that game, the initial burst of pressure from Btothej, taking control of the board, and frankly, maintaining board control for almost the entire game. There weren't many positions where Thallis ever had more characters in play, or more people in play than Btothej, but nonetheless, despite using his people as projectiles, using his people as bullets, Thallis was able to navigate the lack of board control and still get the job done by chipping those camps down. A lot of good swings in that game. One of the things I really like about watching games of Radlands is how many times you have that roller coaster feeling, particularly when you're playing, of course. When you're down in the thick of it, it's a little more intense than when you're watching it as a spectator. But oh, I feel great about this turn. I got 3 people into play and I dealt a damage and healed the thing. What a tremendous turn. And then you pass to your opponent and they wipe everything off the board. And okay, well now I don't have any cards in hand. My board's empty. They have an empty board too, but they have a hand and the ability to rebuild. So you've got to navigate and kind of know it's a very rare game where a player is able to stick an early threat and then build and snowball off that threat for the whole game. Typically, games involve a lot of back and forth, a lot of ups and downs, and swinging between one player looking powerfully ahead and then kind of crumbling as the other player deploys their resources and chips away at what they built up. There are occasionally games where somebody just is able to stick like a Magnus carve early and just go to work. But that's why I think one of the most critical tools in the Radlands player's toolbox has to be threat assessment. You have to figure out most of the time we talk about games, you should be playing to win, not playing to not lose. And that is generally a good principle. However, in Radlands, you cannot be myopic about chasing that win condition. If you're putting all of your resources into destroying your opponent's camps, they absolutely will eventually take control of the board and completely overpower you and squeeze you dry. So you have to split your attention between threat assessment, dealing with the threats your opponent presents, as well as trying to push towards your own win condition. You can't focus solely on either one. You have to do both all the time on basically every turn with a tremendously scant number of resources. That's another thing I love about this game so much is how few resources you have every turn. So you have to take 3 drops of water and distribute them between two equally important and equally demanding essential lines of play that targeting your opponent's board compared to eroding, taking out your opponent's camps, which actually pushes you towards your win condition. All right, so Btothej is opting to go first this time. Again, all the attendant threats that come along with going first, your first turn tends to be pretty weak, depending upon camp synergy and hand composition. Going first can be a huge advantage, but losing 2/3 of your water in that first turn sometimes can actually put you in the hole in terms of momentum, and you can end up on the back foot starting from your second turn on. All right, as our players get ready with camps here, I'm going to refill my water and I'll be right back.
All right.
All right. Let's see how these ones work.
All right, it looks like one player's got their camps chosen, and we're getting close to being able to go here. Now you've got to consider how much being up 1 game to 0 factors into Thallis's camp choices here. Do you feel a little bit comfortable? Do you get a little boost in your confidence and maybe go for a unorthodox combination of camps, something that maybe is a higher risk, higher reward? Obelisk being sort of the one camp example of like the highest risk, but potentially the highest reward kind of thing you can have. I'm on record as generally not being a huge fan of that camp, although I have tried to make it work.
Can't decide.
It's never really worked out that well for me. You just start off at
Let's see.
such a huge disadvantage.
All right.
Okay, here we go.
I chose Outpost, Raise and Restore, 2 each. The
Mm-hmm.
the Adrenaline Lab, which would have come in handy last game.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Usually,
Yeah,
yeah.
on the mimic. Or was it? Yeah.
Or just to clear my board of injured people would have been nice, but yeah.
Yeah.
And then the
Ah,
Scud
yeah.
Launcher. So I
Okay.
Oh,
got 2 cards.
I got the Outpost also,
Oh, okay.
Oasis, and a
Oasis.
Railgun, and I also have 2 cards. The
okay, so both players opted for
Scott.
the
Is the Oasis
outpost
the one
this
that
time.
reduces the cost in that
Yeah, for the
column?
first. Yeah.
Outpost being able to heal and send raids out. So this is kind of a combination of two different camps that Btothej had in game one, compiled into one.
All right.
Scud Launcher is an extremely powerful card, especially because it puts the choice of what to damage onto your opponent, and you have the delightful ability to let them damage one of their cards and then punish them for whatever they chose, which always feels good when you can make your opponent feel like they made a mistake. That increases the likelihood of additional mistakes later on.
Of I don't know, Scud Launcher. And pass the turn with one card.
So the Railgun also is going
Okay.
to allow Thallis' side of the
You
board
should
to
draw. Didn't you
generate.
draw
Oh,
then?
I didn't draw. No, I didn't draw for the
Oh
turn.
no,
Alright, I
a bit
wouldn't
of a
have
misplay there.
changed my play.
Okay. Cool.
So 2 cards.
Yeah. I thought the math was wrong.
That's nerves. It's the final table.
Yeah, it was.
Uh, so like I was saying, the railgun on Thallis' side costs 2
I'll
to deal 1
play
damage, whereas the Scud Launcher on Btothej's side only costs 1. Difference is Thallis gets the ability to decide where that damage goes. Now, sometimes making your opponent make choices is good.
I'll play
Generally speaking, making your opponent make more choices than you increases the likelihood that they will make
Pyromaniac
an incorrect
for 1,
choice.
for free.
But you can't turn up your nose at targeted damage either. Oasis being able to play people for a discount feels pretty good, so that Pyromaniac comes down for free.
I'm gonna junk a repair bot to hit your muse.
Oh, wow. Okay, so an
Harsh.
aggressive play with
Yeah.
the
I thought
potential
that was
healing there.
Yeah, it's good.
um
That it's hard to be critical of that. While the repair bot definitely has a lot of utility, particularly hanging on to it to make sure that you can punish your opponent for any type of like 2-turn kill they go for on a camp or thinking they're safe from a person. Making sure that that muse isn't giving Btothej an additional water every turn. Like shutting that off as fast as possible is really important. If the muse lives for 3 turns, that is functionally gives your opponent an entire turn's worth of resources. And that can drown you. Which would be a super embarrassing way to die in a world where water is a scarce resource. Okay, now when a player is willing to buy a card
and
while they still have cards in it, like that doesn't strike me as a desperation move. I think Dallas feels pretty comfortable with where things are. I, maybe there's an argument that using the railgun to finish off the muse or put a damage on one of those camps could have been worth doing,
have
but if
water.
you've got the breathing room to build up your hand, trying to maintain hand advantage in Radlands is extremely important. Imagine we're gonna see that water,
Pick up
that
the
less
silo.
water go into the silo. Yeah,
Pass
there's
turn.
not really any other outlets for it on the board at this
So
time.
your guy activates for what again?
For 1,
For 1 and damage. Sorry, I don't remember his ability.
damage and unprotected camp.
In unprotected camp. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks. Draw my card for the turn.
So if you're Btothej, I think you want to try to get 2 people down here so that there's no outlets for potential pyromaniac damage. Force Thallis to have to clear up some of these
Damage
shields
a
first.
card of your choice from the Scud Launcher.
Man, where do you put that?
Yeah.
Probably the Oasis, because it's protected, so it's the least vulnerable spot where you could
Do
take the
the
damage. Certainly you don't want to put the damage on the
outpost.
pyro. Okay, opting
Right.
instead for the
I can do it.
outpost. Nope. Okay.
The Oasis? Okay.
That is the play I would have expected. Do you heal your muse here? That feels really expensive to pay 2 to stand up a water generator, but I guess you're telling Thalos, hey, you want to use your pyromaniac to hit one of my camps? Cool, you better have something else to address this muse, or I'm going to start to get ahead in the water race. I could see that being a line.
Okay, so I'll
Doesn't
put
feel
out
very strong,
a
though.
looter behind
Okay.
Muse.
Oh, behind the muse.
Mm-hmm.
So this says to me that Btothej values the Scud launcher higher than any of his other
And
camps, and it's not
put
close.
out a
The looter does potentially also offer its own kind of threat because when it deals damage to a camp, he has the
put out
ability
an
to draw a
assassin.
card.
And then I'll pass the turn with one card.
All right.
So clearly, the Adrenaline Lab is the least valued of the camps. Rather than opting to protect all three and shut off the Pyromaniac's ability to do anything, Btothej protected his looter and left that Adrenaline Lab exposed.
Okay.
Trying to remember. Okay, so the looter does
I
cost
will for
2
1 out
water.
with the Adrenaline Lab.
So if you're using them to only deal damage, that's not the best exchange rate. But if you use the looter to deal a damage and that damage is to a camp, you're paying 2 water plus drawing a card, which is a much better deal.
And
Now, we see the pyro damage goes into the Adrenaline Lab, but knowing that Btothej has the outpost sitting there and the ability to heal that right back up, I wonder how
I
long
will
that damage is going to sit
take out
there.
the Adrenaline Lab for 2.
Ooh. So Thallis commits to the railgun, says, no, 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 I don't do 2-turn destruction. When I go for a camp, I take it all the way down to the ground. And pulling out to
All right.
the first camp
And the first
destruction
water.
again, just like last
I'm
game.
gonna junk the water silo, and I'm gonna junk interrogate to get 2 water, and I'm gonna put napalm into play
Oh, wow.
again, and then
So we have to imagine the napalm has got its eye on that Muse looter column.
I will
So looter into one of those unprotected camps plus Scud launcher could leave Tallis's board looking
do.
pretty ragged. So let's say Scud launcher puts the damage on the outpost. Well, then the looter
Yeah, I'm
could kill
gonna
the
junk
outpost.
a repair bot to hit your assassin,
Oh, and he's not even going to try
and
to
I have
heal the
0 water
Oasis?
and 0 cards.
Okay.
All right.
Draw Mike for the turn.
So this is going to be the chance for Btothej try to do something here. Thallis
Use the
has
Scud launcher.
no cards. Okay.
Okay.
I think I like that choice to put the damage on the Pyromaniac
Use
rather
the
than to
looter to
expose
hit the
one of the camps.
the outpost.
All right, so
Then
card
draw a
goes
card.
to Btothej. So that's all his water. But you got to feel pretty good about that. And we know Thallis has discarded one heal bot, so potentially he could play a heal bot, which would protect a camp as well as stand one up. But he's got no cards in hand, so he's in full on top deck mode.
Um,
Think if you're Btothej and you have the ability to like junk a card for some water, if you're gonna play a person, it's got to go to the center column.
pass the
You're
turn. I got 3 cards in hand.
okay.
All right.
Yeah, with the napalm threat,
Napalm
playing
goes
any
up. I
person
hit
feels a
the
little bad,
Scud
I think.
launcher column.
Yeah, Scud launcher, Colin. Get rid of that looter for sure. The Muse finally. I think that Muse was played on turn 1. That stuck around for a while. Oh man, so what do you do here? Potentially the outpost could stand up itself or the Oasis.
I will use 2 water to damage your Scud Launcher. And
I don't like that play unless you got a way to finish it off. What card did he draw? Did he not play anything?
I'm gonna use
See, I think I would have preferred 2 water to the outpost to start a raid.
Junk
And
Bombardment to stand
Okay.
up the outpost.
yeah, bombardment.
And
That's a tough card to
grab
play.
silent for my last water and pass turn.
Card for the turn.
Okay, 3 cards in hand. He's down at camp, but the Scud Launcher's still going. He could start a raid. He could stand that Scud Launcher up. I feel like if you're on Btothej's side of the
I'll
board here, you gotta
junk the
feel your
wounded
confidence growing a
soldier
little bit.
to injure your flame guy, flamethrower.
So there's only 3 cards in the game that cost 4,
Pyromaniac.
and Bombardment
Pyromaniac.
is 2 of them.
Okay. You'd think I'd have all the cards memorized by now, but still
That's a lot of
forget
them.
sometimes. Yeah. Get the repair bot out to restore the
Wow.
Scud launcher. Activate the Scud launcher.
What do you do?
Yep.
And this is the trap that can happen with Radlands. When you try to push a little too hard early in the game, you can end up with no cards in hand, no people in play.
And then get out and here or get out an assassin behind
Oh,
a
wow.
wounded assassin.
Okay.
Pass
Alright.
the turn.
So what do you want to top deck if you're Thallis to try to get out of this mess? Vanguard would feel pretty good. Play that guy down, get the extra punk. Uh, any one of the cards that when you play it, you get to generate a punk. I think it's the 2 Vanguard and the 1 Legendary. Legendary probably not so much because then that's going to be the only thing you're doing that turn. But at the very least, getting some meat shields in front of these. Now, the Oasis still lets him play people for 1 less as long as there's no people there. So for free, he could play a card in the Oasis column and then have water left over to potentially
I will
shoot
buy
the
a card.
railgun. Ooh, buying a card, not a good sign. Well, if you're on Thallis' side of the board, not a good sign. If you're on the opposite side of the board, that's got to feel great. Like your opponent is kind of on the ropes, and instead of presenting any kind of threat that you have to address, they're digging for resources.
I'll play a sniper for free.
Okay, so that is a threat that is going to have to be addressed, or Thallis could start to dig his way out of this. Now, the sniper is expensive, it
For
costs
junk,
2.
will I do that?
But for that 2, you're able to damage any card, which includes that Scud Launcher. So if the sniper is able to survive for a couple of rounds and get activated twice, I have to imagine we're going to see a camp getting killed here.
Yeah. You have 1 card in hand?
Yeah, just 1 card.
Yeah.
So when we entered this
Yeah, I'm gonna junk Cedo
phase
card
of the
for
game
punk.
where Thallis gutted his hand and passed with no cards,
Sniper.
Btothej had 3 cards. And during that period, these, what is it, 2 or 3 turns where Thallis has been kind of rebuilding his hand and trying to kind of stabilize after having overextended a bit. He's taking 2 damage on
Discard a water
camps.
silo.
Unfortunately for Btothej, the people that he's
Use it
put
on
into play
outpost to restore the outpost.
are board control people, and what he wants is damage
Pass
people.
turn.
So payment to the outpost to heal itself there.
Draw my card.
And that's the thing about damage. It seems like 2 damage versus 1 damage is not that big of a deal, but the difference in it being locked in and unrecoverable from it's huge. So, like, we looked at the board there, and Thallis had taken 2 damage to his camps. Btothej had taken 2 damage to his camps. The difference in having it spread across 2 camps versus 1 is you can heal it away. Those assassins are kind of useless given the state of the board. You're never going to be able to use an assassin against a punk.
Okay, we'll try
And
this.
if you
I'm gonna
can't get rid of the
jump
punk, you
the
can't get to the
mimic
sniper.
or get rid of the punk,
There we go.
and assassin the sniper, and then scud launch.
We're back to where I started. The last
Yeah.
turn.
Pass the turn, 1 card in hand still.
Yeah, Btothej's play there essentially time walked Thallis' entire turn. Just erased it from the fabric of reality.
I will
Famine could be useful here. Maybe trying to like railgun off. Oh man.
I will have to buy a card. I'm gonna junk the Doomsayer to get another card.
It's hard to come up with what the right answer would be here for Thallis to be able to play because unfortunately he's in a position where he's going to need to like draw multiple cards per turn but also play multiple cards per turn. Otherwise that Scud Launcher is just going to chip him away to dirt. If he plays people out and puts the Scud Launcher damage on the people to try to protect his camps, well, then the people are going to end up dead and he's not going to be able to use any of their abilities because they're always going to be injured by the time the turn gets passed to him. If he tries to invest in things like the railgun, it's just a little bit too expensive to get the board back under control. If he's paying 2 water per turn, then he's not drawing cards, but also Btothej could be putting out 1 water people to protect his camps and chipping him away with the Scud Launcher. Railgun's not going to get him there in this kind of race. He's only got the 1 water, so it's a pretty limited list of cards that he could potentially have in hand as playables. Potentially one of those could be junkable for another water, but then you're investing 2 water to play
this guy for free and take the water silo.
Okay.
And pass
So
turn.
now the holdout does have a pretty strong ability. He comes into play for free because of the Oasis effect. And if he can get going, the holdout can start throwing raids downrange. I think. I'm actually going to look up his ability. I believe it's start a raid.
And do the simple stuff, I guess. Take out your person.
It's 1 damage.
And then scud launch.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter though. Now, do you put it on the railgun? Or do you let go of one of your other camps? I feel like you gotta put it on the railgun. But now he's getting to the point where he's going to be super vulnerable to a bombardment play. Although I can't imagine we're going to see a bombardment play from Btothej here. He can just keep using the assassin.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. 2 cards in hand.
Okay.
Pass the turn.
Yes.
Wow. Even while maintaining board advantage and now creeping ahead in the life total in terms of damage on camps, Btothej has also maintained hand advantage.
Seriously, what?
This game looks a lot different than the first game, where we had a lot of ups and downs across the course of the first game. This was Thallis came out strong and then started to kind of lose his grip on it and has never really been able to plant his feet and recover since then. Two cards, potentially 4 water available.
Okay, I'm gonna, for 2, I'm gonna put in Radiation on the 1 spot. I'm gonna junk the silo to get another water. I'm gonna use it on the outpost to restore. It doesn't really matter.
So the radiation
yeah.
is going to
Let's
completely
just
eliminate
do the
one
railgun, I
assassin,
guess.
and it's going to injure the other assassin and the heal bot. So that will essentially turn off the 3 water combo that Btothej has been using to just shred Thallis for the last couple turns. But he's gonna get to do it at least one more time. So we just Scud Launcher and have it guaranteed to hit a camp. What could Btothej play here to force another damage through and kill off one of those camps this turn? I can't think of any people who would be ready when they come into play that would let him do that. So we're looking at least one more turn before he's going to be able to finish a camp off. But it's getting to be do or die time for Thallis. He's got to address that Scud Launcher. Much like the catapult did in the first game, the texture of this game is being written by camp abilities. They can feed the assassin. Wow, 3 cards in hand. So even when Thallis digs out of the current board state, Btothej is ready to deploy even more resources.
I will buy a card.
I'm a little surprised we didn't see a heal off the outpost there.
Okay.
Maybe the hope is that he will top deck into like a repair bot or something. Or maybe he's already got something that's
For 1
junkable for
water,
healing.
I will use Interrogate.
Oh,
Draw 4
oh
cards,
no.
discard 3 of these cards.
Well, oh no for one side of the board and oh yeah for the other. I think if you're Btothej, seeing your opponent spend his water in this way when you're looking at this kind of
I
board
will
state, you got to
play
feel
a
pretty confident
Uprising,
that you've almost shut the game.
Scientist, and Mulgar
Shut the game out.
Stang.
Wow, getting rid of the mad
And
scientist.
then
What did
I'll
he
play a
draw?
Vanguard for free.
Oh, there you go.
And and he will gain a punk.
I think objectively the mad scientist is a better and more important character than the Vanguard, but the ability to get 2 things down to really hamper and slow down that Scud Launcher is absolutely critical here. That was a smart play.
Yeah. I think I'll pass turn.
Okay.
1 second. 1 second. Oh yeah, I bought a card and played the event. Yeah, it adds up. Passing turn.
Yep. Okay,
So,
so sorry, Vanguard's activating does damage and what?
1 damage, and then the opponent does 1 damage back for 1 water cost.
Okay.
it's a pretty precarious place for the Vanguard to be used here. So getting him into play to generate 2 bodies, the Punk in particular, is just great to soak up the Scud Launcher activation.
Oh,
But
sorry.
I don't know
Mirrors
if
are in the
Thallis is
wrong
going to
spot.
want to necessarily use that Vanguard's ability because he does 1 damage to, say, clear the assassin out, and then Btothej destroys one of his camps. That doesn't feel very good. So we have to assume that Thallis' intent, if he wants to use the Vanguard's ability, is to try to get some other people into play. So there's some meat shields in front of those camps before giving Btothej essentially 1 free damage.
Off the Raiders with the outpost.
I thought you might.
What do you kill?
That's tough.
Probably the outpost, just because it's unprotected, maybe? The Oasis is hard to evaluate because by itself it's kind of
Do the
useless.
Oasis.
But with the fabric, it did.
Even though
Okay, so that tells me
did well so far.
Yeah,
Thallis either thinks
not an easy choice though.
he doesn't have either he doesn't have cards in his hand that could be discounted sufficiently by the Oasis, or he doesn't think that B to the J is going to clear the Vanguard. Because if he thought the Vanguard was going to get cleared and he could get a free card off the Oasis, I think he might have damaged something else. Which would tell me probably the cards in the hand are events or people that cost more than one.
So 4 cards and a water silo.
Whew.
Pass the turn.
Well, or again, that the assessment was the Vanguard couldn't get cleared, which was correct. That hand size on B to the J, though, is starting to look pretty insane. Dallas has been able to start building up too. And this is the thing, another thing with Radlands. If you take too much time building your resources
I'm
and really
gonna
try to like squirrel away a powerful hand, your opponent can use that breathing room to do the same thing. I would much rather have
discard truce
one
to make
card.
your repair bot.
Okay, repair bot goes away. I would much rather have one card against an opponent with 0 cards than have 5 cards
And
against an opponent with 3.
then with my Vanguard, I'll deal a damage to your scud
Interesting.
launcher.
I did not anticipate that. I would have
And
thought he
then
would have
deal a damage
protected
back
the
Here's
outpost
what
before he did that.
to the outpost.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that seems like the move. All right, so
I'm
B to the
gonna
J
gun down your
claims
scud
a
launcher with my railgun.
commanding lead for a second.
And
Yeah.
He's still ahead, but now both players have
I
2
will
camps locked in, damaged state. So you have to feel like B to the J is feeling some pressure here. Like this is the moment. Dallas's board looks weak. He doesn't have that big of a hand,
yeah.
and he only has 1 hit
Okay,
point left
never
on his
mind.
last camp. This
I
will be
will
the
just
turn where we get down a sniper and put something in front of it to protect it.
junk a which one?
Seems like Balls is deciding to, he may or may
Yeah,
not
I will
junk one of
junk a
his cards.
Vanguard
Yep.
to
Starting a
get my
raid.
raiders out.
Okay. That does put a kind of a clock
And pass
on B to
turn
the J.
with
He
1
still
mana.
has to get through that assassin if he wants to be able to soften up that camp enough for the raid to finish it off, though. A single junk for injured from hand, though, could get him there.
This is kind of too funny, what my hand is. Well, let's try this. Water silo. 4
water.
water.
Oh, and picking up all 4 water?
Get out Stang. Restore
Whoa!
the assassin.
Whoa!
And
Okay,
then
so Mulger
junk a
Stang.
bombardment to restore the assassin.
Oh, wow, and restoring the assassin. This might be all she wrote.
And pass with 3 cards in hand.
Mulger Stang is the only
Okay.
4-cost person in the entire game and has the most ridiculous
So I
ability.
guess Raiders move, and then yeah.
Yeah.
So if
I
Thallis
forgive
can't
events
eliminate
so
him now, it is game
I
over.
will
Mulger Stang is pay water, destroy any camp.
junk strafe to draw a card.
How is he going to get through? I don't think he can.
I'm
If we
gonna do it.
assume both the cards in hand are damaged, he could deal the damage, kill the assassin, and
I
then
guess just
use the Vanguard. But that's assuming both cards in hand are
try.
damaged. I guess he used the Railgun and the Vanguard, but that doesn't get through to Mulger. One of those cards in hand has to be an injured card, or Thallis loses this game. He has to put 3 damage on the board right now, or it's over. And I only see 2.
Well, yeah. I'm gonna
I guess he could draw a card.
your
No, if he draws a card, then he won't have enough left.
I'm gonna damage your assassin again.
Does he have the
Gonna
injure?
play a holdout for free and junk my banish to hit your camp. I'm gonna junk the holdout, but it doesn't make any matter to get my raiders out.
Yeah, it's over. If he couldn't
And
injure
I'll
Mulger
have to
staying
cast
there,
attack.
this is game over.
All right, staying the camp.
Same.
Wow.
Oh,
All right.
look at this hand.
Oh my
That's all you
gosh.
So
do.
my hand was this at one point.
All the
Okay.
Four,
legendary
four,
minion.
three, 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 and I'm like, putting punks out doesn't do me any good, so
No.
Okay,
All
well,
I
right.
had to
that
go
actually
all
answers some
in.
questions that I had about Btothej spending so many turns building resources. He wasn't opting to build resources strategically. He was trapped behind high cost cards, preventing him from being able to get them out. Well, I guess we go into game three. Holy smokes.
Yeah, which that's okay. That's good with me. So we're
Yeah,
not
yeah,
playing
yeah.
for 5 hours or something.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
game two was quite a bit
Yeah.
shorter than game one, but this game one was so long that it kind of made up for it.
This will be good.
Yeah,
But
a
I like
good
when
mix is
yeah.
fun. Yeah.
So as we come into game three, to kind of recap, game one was very back and forth with B to the J, kind of taking the early lead, but ultimately Thallis was able to get a swing and kind of take it over. Game two, uh, Thallis got a kind of an early lead, but stalled out a little bit. And while he did have the turns to draw additional cards and try to swing the game back, due to B to the J getting trapped with a handful of extremely high cost cards. At the end of the day, he couldn't draw what he needed. He was short at least one injure effect that would have been necessary to avoid the Mulger staying kill shot there at the end. And again, style points for finishing a game with Mulger. Here we are, game three, Btothej's Radlands, number three. This one's for all the water.
6.
It's also kind of wild how game one, a lot of the overall flow of that game was kind of written and controlled by catapult activations, whereas game two, it was scud launcher activations. I think both of these are kind of a testament to how important camp-based damage is, particularly cheap camp-based damage. I don't know if catapult qualifies as cheap
I don't know
necessarily,
if this is.
but the ability to target anything is what
Oh,
pushed
these are some
the
interesting choices.
catapult over the top, and the cheapness is what pushed the scud launcher over the top.
Right.
All right, it looks like Thallis coming off a loss here. Has his camps locked
I'm not
in.
sure about these.
So Mr. Ben,
Yeah,
is he still with us?
he is. He's here for the marathon.
Yeah, I'm here.
All right.
I've been filling all the time with chatter about line of play and how important camp-based damage is.
Yeah. All right.
How
I'm
much?
excited to hear your
How
commentary.
All right, I got my 3.
Yeah, me
Well,
too.
good luck to both of you guys heading into game three. It's been quite the set so far. So exciting
Yeah.
stuff. Looking forward to this conclusion.
All right. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks. So I chose the Scud Launcher again.
All right.
The Obelisk. Have
Oh,
you used
oh,
that?
No, I like that card. It's
Yeah, no, I'm just.
yeah.
And the Pillbox, which kind of works with the
Oh,
Obelisk.
yeah. I like
oh,
that card
that's
also.
great synergy.
Okay.
So that's fun. So I get 4 cards and
Yeah. I got
2 camp.
the labor camp, victory totem, and a cannon for 1 card each.
Okay.
Okay, so the final camp lineups are locked into place.
Okay, cool.
Obelisk plus Pillbox is great because Pillbox by default has printed pay 3 water to deal the damage. That is above rate, but it gets discounted for each damaged camp. So the Obelisk, giving you 3 cards to start and then immediately going damage, allows that Pillbox to be active for 2 right away, as well as the Scud Launcher, which is another kind of must kill damage producing target. This is a threatening line of camps from Btothej, even though he's starting out at a disadvantage of taking 2 damage right off the bat. Moving over to Thallis' camps, we have Victory Totem, which produces 2 different types of camp-based damage, both raid generation as well as injuring people. The cannon, what did I say Victory Cannon? It's a Victory Totem. The cannon allows you to deal damage, but unless you can heal it, it's not going to be doing that very long because it gets damaged every time you use it. And finally, the labor camp lets you destroy a person and then heal. But without something like the arcade, like Thallis had in game one, I don't know if he's going to have sufficient people in order to throw them into the labor camp to rely on that to get consistent damage out of the cannon. So getting a mutant down into play is okay. I kind of prefer the mutant as a mid-game character. Once things are already damaged, your opponent's going to be a little bit reluctant to put damage onto a camp when they know you're showing a mutant and you can just immediately heal it back up.
Oh, this is my first. Did I draw a card?
You start with 3 and you
Yeah.
jump to draw.
Yeah.
So yeah, you should have
One,
one
two.
more card.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Both players now have had a turn one
Um.
forgetting to draw a card episode. Again, handled like
Yeah.
with absolute
But that's fine.
sportsmanship on
I'm
both
gonna get the
sides.
raiders out. That was what I did. And pass turn.
Okay.
2 cards.
Draw my card for the turn.
It was a pretty good turn one.
Scud
Paulus
launch.
didn't have to gut his entire hand. He's still
Yep.
holding 2 cards, gets a person into play, and
Mutant.
gets his raid started
Okay.
all off the back of 1 water. That's
Yeah.
a great turn one.
Hello. Wait a second. I'm actually gonna
I
hit the
don't
camp.
think he wants to. Yeah.
Okay.
So if I'm in Thalos' shoes, I think his second choice was much better. Putting the injury
Mm,
in the mutant doesn't feel
I
very
will
good
junk a.
because you can use the mutant's power next turn to damage one of Btothej's camps, ideally the Scud Launcher, probably, or maybe the Pillbox. Either way, it's going to be pain no matter what the choice is. But then you can use the heal effect off the mutant to restore the camp that was damaged by the Scud Launcher.
To
Ah.
take out your mutant,
Well,
All
Btothej
right. Here we
punished
go.
that play.
and then pillbox to get us 2 camps to 2 camps.
Oh, wow. Strong turn one. Holy
And
cow. Wow. I'm curious how many. Wow, 3 cards left, and that is the power of the obelisk right there. Wow, so B to the J was able to tie it up on turn one, 2 camps to 2 camps, and maintain hand advantage while discarding that many cards from hand. That is a string of plays that makes the obelisk look quite good. Now, again, as I said before when I mentioned the obelisk, it's a huge risk. You're committing to that extra card draw, and if you don't get the cards, you don't get the hand composition that allows you to take advantage of it, you can get punished. Clearly, Btothej got what he needed there, though, tying the game up. Strong first turns from both players.
1.
So, is that a looter and a scout?
Let me see.
That's definitely a looter. I
I'll put the
think the
scout
second
in the
card
looter.
played there is a scout.
And I will pick up my water silo for 1.
Okay.
So the looter, if it has the ability to hit a camp, again, costs 2 to deal that damage, but then Thallis would get to draw a card, which is
Anything
something that I
else?
think Btothej wants to
No, pass turn.
avoid.
Okay.
1 card.
He has this advantage. He took
Sounds
this
good.
risk. It paid off. I gotta imagine he wants to put some
Draw my
people into play
card.
this turn to protect his camps and deny that looter damage, or potentially develop damage of his own to get to that looter and at the very least injure it, so that way he's not giving Thallis additional card draw. Every extra card that Thallis draws takes the advantage Btothej got from the obelisk a little bit away from him.
Hmm.
Given how much that advantage costs, I mean, he did even it out. I think it's probably already paid off, but still, regardless of any other considerations, you don't want your opponent
Use the
having the
launcher.
ability to use the looter to draw cards and chip away at your camps.
Yep.
So putting the meat shield in front of the looter protects it from the pillbox play. I think that's also why the you didn't want to put the scud launcher damage into one of the camps, like into that exposed victory totem. The pillbox could pick it off. Can't let that happen. As valuable as a scout is, he's not as valuable as your camp.
Get out a mimic
That card is even
and
more of a
a
threat with that
looter.
looter in play.
And
Well, Btothej did exactly what I kind of thought he needed to do, which was get some people down in front of those camps to deny that looter value to Thallis. As you do, Junk the cult leader. So if you're sitting on Thallis' side of the board, I think you absolutely have to be looking at how do I get through that mimic? How do I use my looter on the Scud Launcher this turn? I want that thing gone. Which means if you want to use the looter, that's going to be 2. That leaves 1 water, potentially 2 water if he cashes in the water silo he's handing, and 2
I will
cards in
play
hand
a
to try to get
exterminator
through
for
that
1.
mimic. That's not going to get him there.
And for 2.
So the looter doesn't have to hit a camp. He could just use the looter to damage the mimic. But then you're paying 2 for 1 damage, which isn't the best deal, and you're denied that card draw. But that may just be the correct play here.
I will
If,
get back out the Raiders.
okay, opting to use the victory totem to start the raid
Pass the turn with 1 card.
rather than damage the mimic. Interesting. It would be expensive, but Btothej could double activate looter this turn and kill one of those people. How much does the exterminator cost? Could he activate looter, use the exterminator to finish him off, and then have enough water left to? No, that'd be too expensive. Exterminator costs 1 to destroy all damaged enemies. Unfortunately, you'd have to damage
this
the
start with the
exterminator.
scud.
Where is that gonna go? Oh, killing the scout. Okay. Not letting either camp take damage here.
And then
So with 2 water left, could damage the looter, and if Btothej has the ability to produce 1 additional water, he could use the mimic to copy the exterminator and get rid of Thallis's looter, thus setting him up for looter damage to an exposed camp next
we'll
turn. We know Thallis is
use
very close to top deck mode. He's only shown 1 card plus a silo. Where's that water going? Is he playing an event?
use the. I guess it doesn't make that much difference. I'll use the looter to hit your looter,
Okay.
Yep.
and I'll pass the turn with 3 cards.
Now, if that exterminator is
Alright,
still up
Raiders
and that
goes
mimic
up.
is still up next turn, Btothej is set up to exterminator, clear the looter, and then send 2 damage into that camp and draw a card. I think if I'm Thallis here, I'm wondering if maybe I should have damaged the exterminator
I
instead
will
of
cash
killing
in the
the
water
scout
silo,
during that last scud
water,
launcher.
and then I'll play bombardment for 4.
Oh, oh,
Okay, it's a big one.
big investment.
Um,
Now there's going to be a couple turns here where Thallis is going to be extremely vulnerable to a Doomsayer play.
yeah, pass turn.
Okay. Draw my card.
I got to imagine Mimic Looter is the move here. Because I'm not sure how many cards he has in hand. If you could junk a card to not have to mimic the exterminator, junk something to get that looter out of the way, and then use the looter to
Yeah, gonna
hit
try it. So I'll
the
junk
labor camp. There it
famine
is.
to take out the looter.
Looter into labor camp. And then all he needs is 1 more water, like a card that can be junked for water, and
Use
Looter
my looter
Pillbox
to
kills
hit
off
your
labor camp
unprotected
entirely.
camp
Does he
and draw
have
a
the
card.
extra water?
Mm-hmm.
Junk higher ground for another water.
Yeah, you're not wrong about that. In the
Mimic
chat,
my
Bombardment, the
looter
all-in of
to hit
Radlands.
your damage camp to draw a card.
But your looter is not ready.
Oh, you're right. All right, sorry. I don't get to draw. I use the
Yeah,
pillbox.
yeah, at least.
That's right. I should have done it in the opposite order, is what I
Yeah.
should have done. Okay.
I missed that play too.
Alright.
And then I will
Mimicking the
an
looter first
assassin to
would
get out
have drawn
raiders.
2 cards for Btothej. Small misplay there. Given
And
the fabric of the board, I
2
don't know that he's
cards
going to
in
get
hand. Pass the
punished
turn.
for it. Thallis doesn't have a lot of time to punish him for it. But even so, even though he gave up essentially a free card, he's still got 2 cards to Thallis' 1. He's going to have 3 next turn. So he's still got hand advantage, even leaving that on the table. Plus the Scud Launcher's cheap damage. This is bad news.
Destroy the Scud, or do I? I think given the impending bombardment, I think that's the route I'm going. Scud launcher is gone.
Yeah. Alright.
Okay, so the pillbox is only going to cost one, so it's going to be one targeted. Does it let him? Okay, so it's not any card. It has to follow damage rules, so it can only hit unprotected cards.
I will play an assassin for 1.
Do we
Okay.
think that assassin is going to have the
And
opportunity to
2,
activate?
I will
Seems unlikely.
injure uh, your
I'm
looter.
going to take out the mimic, right?
Okay.
No, looter. Okay.
And
That's a little dangerous given that the mimic can, well, I guess either way, it really doesn't matter. It's either going to be the assassin or it's going to be the looter. Oh, it does matter. The looter pays 2 to injure something, and the assassin pays 2 to destroy something. So Mimic, for the same water, is going to be able to completely remove that exterminator
yeah,
from play versus just injuring it.
and I'll pass turn with 1 card.
Draw. Or Raiders. It's all right. Raiders move to 1.
Oh, this is coming down to the wire, folks. So 2 into the Mimic, copying the assassin will destroy the exterminator, and then 1 with the pillbox will injure the looter, which leaves Thallis with no active people in play. Now he's still, it's a little bit glared out there, but his center camp is the victory totem, and he's got that bombardment in play, though. Unfortunately, victory totem isn't going to be able to let him.
Play a mutant
Oh,
behind the looter.
even more damage. So the mutant can't do much this turn other than just get in
Turn
the way.
1.
But next turn, even if Thallis can somehow force a damage through on something,
Rescue
the
team out.
oh wow. So B to the J, instead of pressing to win, is opting for the not lose line of play here by building up his board and making
And
it
then
difficult for Thallis to
turn.
push through for that last damage, which makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Pillbox on the exterminator.
Yeah.
All right.
Pass the turn with 1 card in hand.
Bombardment creeps 1 slot closer. So all of these turns where B to the J would have been ripe to drop a Doomsayer and really punish Thallis for investing in such an expensive event, it looks like he's going to get through it unscathed. I think if B to the J had a Doomsayer, he would have played it right there. It would have been too perfect.
Alright, I'm gonna
What do you do here? I guess you assassinate the rescue teams, try to get to the Mimic, maybe? But where does that extra damage
oh,
come from? He can't use Victory Totem for Injure plus Assassin because that costs 4
with
unless
2
he
I'm gonna
has.
injure your looter,
Okay, Lur's getting cleared out by
Yeah.
the Victory Totem
and then
activation.
I'm gonna junk my looter to gain a water, and then I'm gonna, with the assassin, gonna take out your mutant,
Oh, okay.
Okay. Pretty
and
good.
I will junk my radiation to get out my raiders.
Wow. Okay.
Yikes.
Pass turn.
Okay.
Yeah.
Big pressure here. So Thallis is going for the kill shot. The bombardment's going to go off next
Raiders
turn,
falls.
and then all he has to do is pay 2 to the
Draw for the
Victory Totem to
turn.
force the raid through, and that will
Okay.
be it. Unless I think B of the J needs to play Doomsayer right now. Oh, does he have the damage from hand? What could he play that could get him the damage from hand? I guess he couldn't, because it would just be injure. Oh man, if he would have discarded a card to injure. and then had the pillbox to hit the victory totem here. That could have been it. I think it's too late.
The turn with 2 cards.
All right, turn
Alright.
pass. Bombardment
So
goes
bombardment
off.
goes off.
And then
Raiders
2
move
water to
up.
victory totem. Is
And
this
then
it?
activate the Raiders.
2 on, yeah.
Oh, there it is. Thallis wins.
I didn't have any way to push back your Raiders.
No.
I thought
Oh,
it was good because, my hand was 2 repair bots, so if you couldn't do it in 1 turn, I was gonna stand it back up.
yeah.
But you could do 1 turn, so that was enough.
Great
Yeah.
games, guys.
Thank you.
Those were very exciting. Congratulations to Thallis for the win. Appreciate both of you guys
Yeah,
sticking with it, both through the whole event and then this grueling long finals. It was a pleasure to call the game and bear witness to it, but those were some long games.
Yeah. Yeah, it was.
a lot of interesting
Exciting.
decisions. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
All right, well, I guess we'll
Well,
wrap up the
it's been a
stream
pleasure to
here.
be part of the tournament.
Good.
Yeah, it was
Well,
fun.
Yeah.
these things don't work without players. So, like always, I say
Yeah.
thanks to the players for taking part.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.